The first cry that echoed in the Okoji family compound came from a baby girl, small, fragile, and beautiful.
A blessing.
Her name was Mira, and though the sky outside poured with rain that night, her mother, Ebo, believed it was a sign of blessing. But in a house filled with many wives and their children, blessings could quickly turn into battles. Mira was the only child of her mother, and from the start, she learned what loneliness meant. Her father, Chief Okoji, had 3 wives. Ebo was the youngest, quiet, hardworking, and kind, but also the one most hated by the others. The other wives often mocked her. "You think giving birth to one child makes you special," one would sneer. "Your daughter will end up like you, poor and forgotten," another would whisper. "God, even if no one stands for us, you will." When Mira was 12, the house grew quiet in a way that felt wrong. Her mother had fallen ill, a sickness that the family ignored. No one took her to the hospital. No one helped. By the time Mira ran to the neighbors for help, it was too late. That night, Ebo took her last breath with her daughter's hand in hers. "Don't give up," she whispered weakly. "The world may forget you, but God never will." And just like that, Mira became an orphan in her father's house. The season of struggle days turned into weeks of rejection. Her stepmothers refused to feed her. Her father looked away, too weak to confront his wives. Mira swept floors, fetched water, and did laundry for people in the village just to buy food. She slept on the floor of a small, dusty room behind the kitchen. Sometimes, she cried until dawn. But every morning, she whispered,
"Let this sunrise bring an end to our sorrow.
Help me survive this day."
Hope.
And somehow, he did.
Hear my prayer.
At 16, Mira decided she wouldn't die in that house. She packed her few clothes into a nylon bag and left for the city. She didn't know anyone there, but she had faith, and that was enough. The city was louder than anything Mira had ever known. Buses honked, traders shouted, and the smell of smoke and fried food filled the air. She stepped out of the bus with her small nylon bag and the few naira she had left. She didn't know where she was going, only that she could never go back home. "God, I don't know what comes next," she whispered, clutching her bag, "but please, walk with me." She washed dishes at restaurants, carried cement at construction sites, and cleaned classrooms after school hours. She worked, saved, and studied at night under streetlights. The people who saw her thought she was just another poor girl. But inside, she was becoming a woman of strength, molded by pain and faith. One evening, after a long day of cleaning, Mira sat outside a small food stall, looking at the stars. "Mama," she whispered, "I made it through another day." The wind blew softly through the trees, and she smiled. "Maybe you're proud of me." And somewhere in that quiet night, beneath the same sky her mother had prayed under, Mira felt peace, small, but real. It was the beginning of her journey from survival to purpose. Mira found a small corner to sleep behind a food stall. Each morning, she helped the woman who owned it washing plates, cleaning, and serving customers. In return, the woman gave her leftover rice and a small coin each day. Weeks passed. Her hands hardened, her feet bruised, but she refused to complain. One afternoon, a man at the construction site noticed how she worked tirelessly. "You're too small to carry blocks, girl," he said kindly. "I'm not too small to survive," she replied, sweat dripping down her face. That became her motto: not too small to survive. Months later, while washing dishes at a small restaurant, Mira met Auntie Grace, a kind woman in her late 30s, graceful but with sadness behind her smile. She has a small food stall near the school that Mira often cleaned after closing hours. She noticed Mira reading a torn school book during her break and asked, "You can read?" "A little," Mira said shyly. "I stopped after my mother died." Auntie Grace smiled. "If you're willing to work hard, I'll help you register for evening school." Mira's eyes filled with tears. "I'll work twice as hard. I promise." And she did. She cleaned classrooms before dawn, sowed groundnuts in the afternoon, and studied under dim lights at night. She often went hungry, but she was hungry for more than food. She was hungry for a better life. Over time, Mira learned that Auntie Grace had once been married, but her husband left her after 10 years. Because she could not hear children, people in her community mocked her, called her barren, but she chose to trust in God's love instead of bitterness.
It's okay to cry,
she often told Mira, a woman is not measured by the children she bears, but by the love she gives. Their bonds grew strong, and Auntie Grace became the mother Mira never had. There were nights when the pain returned, the memories of her mother, the insults, the loneliness. She would sit by her small window and pray aloud, God, I'm tired, but I trust you. Somehow, peace would come, not because her problems disappeared, but because her faith grew stronger. Years passed. Mira completed her secondary school. With her savings and help from Auntie Grace, she got a small scholarship to attend a local college. The girl who once carried blocks was now carrying books and dreams. She still struggled. Some days she skipped meals, some nights she cried from exhaustion. But she never stopped believing that God had a plan. I started this journey alone, she wrote in her diary. But I'm not alone anymore. God walks beside me. One evening, after submitting her first college assignment, Mira stood outside the gate, looking up at the city lights. She smiled softly and whispered, Mama, I'm still standing. It wasn't the end of her struggles, but it was proof that faith can grow in even the hardest soil. Mira's life at college wasn't easy, but it was peaceful until the storm began. She lived with 2 roommates who laughed at her old clothes and quiet ways.
Right now?
They called her village girl, mocking her every chance they got. Good. You're wasting your time, one said. Poor girls like you don't graduate, you marry struggle.
What is
Mira
that
smiled
outfit?
weakly,
Are you serious
never answering
right
back.
now?
She remembered her mother's voice. Silence doesn't mean weakness, my child. Sometimes it's strength. But soon, things got worse. A young man named Ton began to show Mira kindness. He helped her with assignments, bought her food, and told her, you deserve good things, Mira. She believed him until she discovered he had made a bet with friends to win the village girl's heart. Her heart broke. She cried in the small hostel bathroom, her tears mixing with the running water. Why do people always hurt me? She whispered. Am I not enough? That night, she opened her Bible to Isaiah 43. 2. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. She read it over and over until peace filled her heart again. A few weeks later, Auntie Grace, the woman who had helped her, suddenly fell sick. At first, it seems as malaria, but her strength faded quickly. She began coughing blood, and after medical tests, the doctor revealed the truth. Auntie Grace had last-stage liver disease. Mira could hardly breathe when she heard it. She sold her few belongings to buy medication. Hospital bills piled up, and Mira used all her savings to buy medicine and stayed by Auntie Grace's bedside every day. One evening, Auntie Grace smiled weakly and said, if God had given me a child, I would have wanted her to be just like you, Mira. You are my answered prayer, not born if my womb, but born of my heart. Those words Mira never forgot. As the illness worsened, Auntie Grace whispered, if not in this world, then the next. That night Mira sang softly until Auntie Grace fell asleep and never woke up again. The next morning, Mira finds a small Bible at the bedside. Of late, Auntie Grace, with a verse underlined, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord's. Mira wept, holding the Bible to her chest, feeling both pain and peace. When Auntie Grace passed away, Mira felt like the ground was pulled from beneath her feet. She stood at the small graveside, holding a single flower. Why does everyone I love leave me? She asked softly. The wind was silent, but her heart heard a whisper. I never left you. It was enough to keep her standing. After Auntie Grace's death, Mira could have given up. But instead, she worked harder. She started tutoring younger students to pay her rent and continued her studies. Each morning she prayed, God, I don't understand your plan, but I trust it. And one evening, Her lecturer called her aside. "Mira," he said, "you've been chosen for a scholarship. Your hard work spoke louder than your background." Her hands trembled as she whispered, "Thank you, Lord." That night, she stood outside her hostel under the moonlight, feeling the soft wind against her face. She thought of her mother, Auntie Grace, and all the people who hurt her, and for the first time, she felt no anger. "Maybe pain was never meant to destroy me," she said softly. "Maybe it was meant to make me see God more clearly." And in that quiet night, Mira smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because she finally understood that faith isn't about having no storms. It's about finding peace while they rage. Open book. Grace after the storm. Sun would face a new season. Time moved gently, like the dawn after a long night. Mira was no longer the frightened girl who arrived in the city with a nylon bag. She had become a woman of quiet strength, the kind that is built through fire and prayer. Her scholarship allowed her to finish school. She studied with passion, driven by the memory of her mother and Auntie Grace. She spent her evenings mentoring younger girls who reminded her of herself, poor, forgotten, but full of potential. "Don't let your pain make you bitter," she often told them. "Let it make you better." When Mira graduated, she didn't have family members clapping for her in the crowd, but as she walked across the stage to collect her certificate, she felt surrounded by unseen hands, the love of her late mother, Auntie Grace, and God himself. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, "I made it, Mama. I made it." A few months later, Mira got a job as a teacher in a small private school.
We are pleased to offer you the position.
Her salary wasn't much,
Thank you
but to
so
her,
much.
it was
I'm
everything.
so relieved and grateful.
Each morning,
Look around
she
you.
stood before her
Each one
students
of you
with joy
holds the
in her
promise
eyes
of
and a
tomorrow.
Bible verse in her
Who
heart.
believes they can make a
If you
difference?
can believe, she told them, you can become anything. She also began writing, journaling her journey, turning her pain into words that inspired others. People who read her story online started calling her Mira the Survivor. One quiet Sunday afternoon, Mira returned to her hometown for the first time in many years. Her father was old, now sitting outside the same house where her mother had once lived. He looked up and froze when he saw her. "Mira." She nodded slowly. He began to cry. "I failed you, and your mother." She placed her hand gently on his. "You did," she said softly, "but I forgive you." In that moment, years of pain melted away. Forgiveness didn't erase the past, but it freed her from it. That night, Mira walked to her mother's grave. The air was still, the stars bright. She knelt and whispered, "Mama, your girl made it. I learned to stand, to believe, to forgive, and to live." A single tear fell, but this time it wasn't from sorrow, it was peace. She looked up at the sky and smiled. "You were right. God never forgot me."